Lekuta Sichos Chelek Tezvav Vayishlach Gimel Yutes Kislev Lili Nishmis Rabbi Yosef Binyamin Bende Benashe Kaltman. This is a very geschmacke, reiche, deep sicha that teaches us what is the contribution of Yutes Kislev, what has it given to the world, to Torah, to the Yid, and what are we celebrating as we approach the Yom Tov of Yutes Kislev. Afin Posik Vayivoser Yaakov Levadoi. In Parshas Vayishlach it says that Yaakov brought his family, his wives and his daughters over the Mavar Yaboik, over the Yaboik river, and then he went back and he remained alone. So there are a number of commentaries that explain what does it mean that Yaakov was alone. Umehem, and amongst them. Aleph, the Gemara zogt, and the Gemara brings it, and Rashi says it in other words. Nishtayer al pachin ktanim, he remained for small jugs, small pitchers that he went back to get. Und das is merumas in Wort levadoi, and this is alluded in the word levadoi. Rabbi Bali Hateis was bringing it up as the Bali Hateis bring al tikre levadoi elo lechadoi. Don't read Vayivasa Yaakov levadoi, the Yaakov remained alone, but Vayivasa Yaakov lechadoi, Yaakov remained for his jug. So we see one explanation why Yaakov remained behind, and it's actually even seen in the word of the pasuk levadoi. Beis, there's another explanation brought in the Medrash state. The Medrash brings just like with regards to Hashem, it says that he will be exalted alone, meaning to say that he is so high above the rest of the world that he is levada, he is alone. Also Yaakov was so much higher, so far removed from the world that he is considered levada, alone. We feel more gerät aber alle Pirushim auf denselben Pasuk und Mikolshkin auf denselben Wort zwischen sich a Kesher Techni. It's been discussed many times that the various different commentaries on the same pasuk and certainly on the same word have to be connected by their theme, by their content. Davon verstehen, was ist die Scheiche zwischen die zwei Pirushim mit die Dan. So we have to understand what is the connection between these two Pirushim, that Levadoi means Lechadoi, that he remained for some jugs, and that Levadoi, that he is so high, so exalted, that he is far removed from everything else. On the contrary, seemingly they seem not only to be not connected, they seem to be paradoxical. According to the Gemara, Yaakov's remaining levadoi is connected with insignificant things. Things that have very little importance. Not only the meaning of the pasuk, but even the word levadoi, which literally means alone, is translated lechadoi, for a pitcher, for a jug. Whereas according to the Medrash, Vayivasa Yaakov levada, Yaakov remained alone, is something that speaks about the greatest level, highest level. It's compared to the fact that the Eibishter is exalted alone. Which speaks about the oneness and the revelation of the divine godliness as it will be revealed when Mashiach comes. By Yoimahu ke'hamshech pasuk. The end of the pasuk is V'niska Hashem levadoi. By Yoimahu, this is a reference to the time of Mashiach, when the Eibishter will be recognized in his oneness and in his greatness, so exalted from everything else. So on the one hand, we're saying that Yaakov remained lechadoi for some jugs, and on the other hand, we're saying V'niska Hashem levadoi, that Yaakov is levadoi, far removed, much higher than anything else. So here it's the lowest, it's insignificant, here it's very high. How do we reconcile these two seemingly opposite explanations on the same pasuk? Now we're going to put this question on hold. We're going to come back to it at the very end of the Sikha. The rest of the Sikha is going to speak about Yutes Kislev. Says Yodua was der Shalosh schreibt, dass alle mehr der Hashanas an Merumas in die Parashas Hatera was werden gelernt in these manim in welcher die Mördem seinen Chol. There's a very famous teaching of the Shalosh where he writes that all of the Yomim Tovim, all the various different festivals throughout the year are alluded to, are mentioned, are seen in the Parshias during which they're being read. Therefore, is verstandig when again the Moed von Yutes Kislev, and therefore we can understand with regards to the Moed, the Yom Tov, the festival of Yutes Kislev. Was es chol bekam shonim videm yard in Shabbos Parshas Vayishlach, which many years it falls out on Shabbos Parshas Vayishlach as it does in the year that this Sikha was said, as it is in this year that we are learning the Sikha together. As the Teichen from Yutas Kislev is Merubas and Parshas Vayishlach, that we're going to find the theme, the idea of Yutas Kislev found in the Parsha of Vayishlach. So to understand this, we first have to introduce the following idea, which is an idea that is discussed in other sikhs as well, even from the Frierdiker Rebbe and certainly from the Rebbe, and that is what is the reason that Chassidus was brought to the world in a revealed way only in the most recent generations. Das was Teres Chassidus is nizgale geworden davke in the Teres Achreinim. The fact that Chassidus was revealed to us in these most recent generations, and not in the earlier generations, which the people of those generations were on a higher level. They were compared to angels, and we are compared to mere humans. So they're the ones that should have been able to embrace the teachings of Chassidus. So why did it wait until these more recent generations? There are two explanations given. Because of the extreme darkness that increased in the recent generations, and specifically in the Doir of the heels of Mashiach, the final Doir of Galus. We need a higher light that should help us survive or overcome the darkness. In the Hara, the Rebbe brings the famous mashal that the Alter Rebbe said about the fact that there was a king, a son of a king, a prince, that had fell into a faint. And one of the ways to wake up someone from a faint is by calling his name. So the Baal Shem Tov, whose name was Yisrael, his purpose was to wake up the Yidden from the faint, the spiritual faint that we were in at that time. This is an example of the choshech that was going on, that the Yidden were in a state of hisalfus, in a state of a faint, and we needed the light of Chassidus to help us through it. That's one explanation. Beis al derech v'yeshteit in Kislev Arizal, as it is brought in Kislev Arizal. It's also brought in Magen Avram and in Shulchan Aruch of the Alter Rebbe, who it is his release from prison, and it is his simcha that we are celebrating. He brings it lahalacha as erev Shabbos darfen versuchen von die Machalon von Shabbos. That on erev Shabbos there is a halacha to taste the foods of Shabbos. As it is alluded to in the phrase, those who taste will merit life. That there's an idea of tasting the foods of Shabbos. So now let us use this analogy in the macrocosm. Now that we are in the general days, the 6 millennia of the world, or the 6 days represent the 6 days of creation, and the 7th millennia is the Shabbos, is the time of the Geula. So now that we are nearing the end of the 6th millennia, as in the last days far b'yes Mashiach, and then in these final generations before the coming of Mashiach, dem erev Shabbos von Yom Shekuli Shabbos, the Friday afternoon of the ultimate Shabbos, the time of Mashiach, a ray of light, at least as a foretaste, is being given to us of the ultimate revelation of the inner parts of Torah, the depth of Torah that will be revealed completely when Mashiach comes. Now we're being given a foretaste of that. So reason number one is that because of the darkness of the times, we need a strong light to overcome the darkness. Explanation number two is because we are so close to Mashiach, we're already beginning to receive the light of Mashiach. Here too we find these two extremes. Later, Eshter Asbara Kumtoy says that Gili Chassidus in Deiros Achreinim is mitzazeh and nidikait. According to the first explanation, the revelation of Chassidus is because the inferiority of the generation. So leave them because of the darkness of these generations. What's required to counterbalance this darkness, is this lofty revelation of the divine light of Chassidus. But according to the second explanation, is the Gili Chassidus in the Deiros Achreinim verbunden mit Meilas Asman. The revelation of Chassidus in these final generations, these recent generations, is because of the lofty quality of the time that we're in. It's because we are like in the space of a Friday afternoon, meaning to say we're so close to the end. We're already experiencing something of what we're going to experience when Mashiach comes, as the Rebbe brings in the Ha'ara, that not only does Chassidus bring to the Geula, Chassidus is actually a taste of the Geula. So, on the one hand, we're saying that there's a darkness, and Chassidus is combating this darkness. On the other hand, we're saying we're in such an amazing time that we're already experiencing a ray of the Geula. So we have to explain what is this. What is the meaning of this? How do these two explanations coincide? Gimel der beer in them, and the Rebbe is going to begin the beer. Says Yodua as it is Kislev at Ufketan the Aschala from the Iker for the Yafutzu minus Chutza. It is known that Yutas Kislev started the beginning of the main thrust of Yafutzu minus Chutza. Obviously, it started with the Baal Shem Tov. But when it came to Kislev and the world was given the go-ahead to spread Chassidus on this new level, this was the main thrust of Yafutz Menesech Chutza. The Afotze from Mayonas Chassidus to Eden, the dissemination of the Wellsprings of Chassidus to all Yidden, Eich zu Azelcha was gefinnen sich in Chutza, even those that are still in a space that we would call Chutza on the outside. Shin viel mol giret. Wegen dem Dio Kalosh Yafutz Menesech Chutza. It's been discussed numerous times. One of the main places is in Lukutas Sichas Chelek Yud, which we learned together a few years ago. About the words Yafutzu Ma'anesecha Chutza. Yafutzu Ma'anesecha Chutza literally means the Ma'ayonos, the wellsprings, should be spread out into the outside. As dos meitas the Ma'ayonos allein darfen kommen in Chutza. That the wellsprings themselves have to reach the outside. Das heißt nicht nur darfen die Mayones haben eine Wirkung auf den Chutza, sie allein bleiben im Kaimim. Not only do the wellsprings have to impact the outside, meaning to say that the wellsprings, the well itself remains where it is. And then you take the water from the well and you bring it to the farthest corners of the outside. That's not the pshat. The Mayones themselves, the wellsprings themselves, have to be spread, be brought into the chutza, into the outside. The Nachmer, more than that, the Mayones darfen sich gefinnen in the chutza in the Neven von Yafutzu, sich verspreiten in chutza, and when they get to the chutza, it has to be there on a level of Yafutzu, of dissemination. Because jeder Prat und Nekude von chutza soll sein durchgenommen durch die Mayones. That every aspect, every element, every space that is in the chutza, that is considered the outside, has to be permeated with the Mayones, not just with the water of the Mayones, but the Mayones themselves. Okay, so just so we understand, in other places, sometimes we talk about Yafutzu, Mayonesecha, Chutza, the three levels. Here, the discussion that we're going to have in this Sikha is about Mayonesecha Chutza, the bringing together the Mayones, the wellsprings themselves, the source of it all, into the Chutza. And we're going to talk about this on four levels. How it is in Torah, how it is by a Yid, how it is in Klal Yisrael, and how it is in the world. That's the next a few seifim of the Sikha. We're going to discuss Mayones and Chutza, the marriage, the fusion, the oneness, the unity of the Mayones, which is the source, the core, the essence of it all, and how it becomes one with the Chutza, with the most external, outside levels and layers. Since everything begins in Torah, is moving as echt der Inyan von der Yafutzu meine Secha Chutza. Der Afotze Gilui von Pnimius HaTorah zu die Eden, welche gefinnen sich in Chutza. So we understand, since everything begins with Torah, so therefore you have to understand that the idea of bringing the wellsprings of Pnimius HaTorah to those Yidden that might find themselves in a space of Chutza, outside of the realm. We're going to begin with Pnimiyus HaTorah and Nigla Torah. In other words, the ultimate goal is to reach the Mayonis into Chutza, into the furthest corners of the world. But we're going to have to start somewhere. So the starting point is Torah. So the starting point of Torah is that the wellsprings of Pnimiyus HaTorah, the secrets of the Torah, should become revealed in Nigla Torah, in the revealed parts of Torah, until they become one. Even before the Alter Rebbe, there were giants that were well versed in both aspects of Torah, both the revealed parts of Torah and the esoteric parts of Torah. And it's obvious that if they learned Nister the Torah, it had to impact that the way they learned Nigla the Torah, the way they learned the revealed parts of Torah, Halacha and Gemara, etc., would be on a different level. But it remained two separate elements. There was the revealed parts of Torah, and then there was the esoteric parts of Torah, the concealed, the hidden parts of Torah. In them is bestanden der Rufte von dem Alten Rebbe, and this is what the Alter Rebbe's accomplishment consists of, as that he unified the two parts of Torah and brought them one together. That in order to understand Nigla, you need Chassidus. In order to understand Chassidus, you need Nigla. And I will see later in the Sikha, in the next Seif, about Emunah and Seichel, that, and which technically applies here as well, that the ability to be able to understand ideas of Chassidus on the same level, in other words, the same intellectual abilities as you do Nigla, that is a Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe. In other words, the fact that you can learn an Inyan in Nigla and it could be impacted by Chassidus, that always existed, Chassidus or Nister. The Alter Rebbe transformed the way, not only the way we learn Chassidus, but the way we learn Nigla. That Nigla is understood in a way of Chassidus, in a way of Pnimiyus HaTorah, I'll explain in a second, and that Chassidus can be understood in a way of Nigla. That we can understand something that is beyond our Seichel. We can understand it in Seichel, which that's what we discussed in Sif Dalit. And the fact that we can understand there's ideas in Torah where halacha paskin something. Say, for example, Lavut. Chassidus says that if this wall goes down to less than 3 tvachim before the ground, it's as if it goes down to the ground. So the reality is different than what Torah says. The reality, if you look at it with your eyes, you'll see that there's a space under the wall. Torah says that it goes down to the ground. So Chassidus, because Chassidus changes the way we learn things, Chassidus gives us the ability to look at something in the world, look at something physical, and say this is not the reality. The reality is the reality of Torah. So this is step number one. The fusion and the unification of Nigla the Torah and Nister the Torah was something that the Alter Rebbe introduced, which changed because of Yitzhak Kislev. Sif Dalet. Dalet, we're going to talk about it within the Yid himself. Since Yidden are connected to Torah, and even more than that, the Torah is our life, the Torah is our life source, and therefore Yisrael and Torah is one thing. Is moving as Geshem, he says, in Torah. So therefore we can understand that just like we have the idea of Yafutzu Manesecha Chutza, the fusion of Mayonis and Chutz as it is in Torah, the Ichut von Sosim Egali, the oneness of the revealed parts of Torah and the hidden parts of Torah as one, as they is the same thing applies in the Neshama. Through the revelation of Teres Chassidus, this accomplished the idea of Yafutzu Manesecha Chutza in the person himself, the Ichud von Sosim V'Galiyos of Nishmasa, the oneness of the concealed part of the Neshama and the revealed part of the neshama. What does this mean? So let's understand something very important here. When we talk about sasim de nishmasa, we're talking about oirha emunah, the fact that the neshama has a relationship with the Eibishter that supersedes, that transcends seichel, that a person believes or has a connection with the Eibishter beyond something that he can articulate or understand or explain, that is called sasim de nishmasa. Now, even before the Gilui of Teres Chassidus, the fact that a person had emunah if the emunah was illuminated his life, then it had an impact even on his koiches hagluyim. Koiches hagluyim are the external faculties of the person, namely seichel and midas. As that even the way he thinks and even the way he feels should be different because of the fact that he has amunah. Von deswegen is the amunah allein geblieben sosim und hecher von seichel galia. Nevertheless, the amunah remained concealed and removed from seichel, which is the revealed aspect, the revealed part of the neshama. In other words, the neshama manifests in a revealed way in seichel and midas, but there's much more depth to the neshama, which is there's the Eira Amunah, which is an expression of the neshama, the fact that a yid could believe in something that it doesn't make any sense to him. So the Amunah obviously impacted the person, but it remained different than the Galia. The Alter Rebbe Tuvkiton, as the Amunah v'Kabbalas El Shalom Alam and Aseichel, so durchlem a dimension in Ganzen. The Alter Rebbe accomplished that the Amunah and Kabbalas El, the level of that transcends Seichel, should permeate the person entirely, bis as a gufezol narabkumen and nisachet ven mit Gali dinishmasa, to the point that they should become one with the revealed aspects of the neshama in Seichel gufe. So sich ablegen und der Herd werden die Inyanim Shalom Alam and Aseichel. That in Seichel you should be able to appreciate, you should be able to understand and internalize the ideas that are higher than Seichel. When I was talking about Galia and Sosim of Torah, I was saying fakert. I was saying that you should be able to understand Nigle on like you understand Chassidus. Now we're saying you should be able to understand Chassidus the way you understand Nigle. That's something that's higher than Seichel. That's something that's not really explainable. Should be able to be internalized in the person's Seichel and his Midas. It should feel that way. When a person believes in the Eibishter, it shouldn't just be that he believes and he does what he's supposed to do, but on the inside he's afraid or whatever it is. The fact that a person could change, could be besimcha, the fact that a person could do certain things and that his whole approach of his intellect and the approach of his how he feels about it is transformed because of the Eira Emunah. This is something that Chassidus made possible. So that's step number 2. Step number 1 is the oneness of Sosim and Galia of Torah. Step number 2 is the oneness of Sosim and Galia in the neshama. That the Eira Emunah, Emunah doesn't always affect a person. A person could have Emunah in the Eibishter and he can go steal at the same time. Emunah, even when Emunah impacts the person's action, it doesn't mean that he feels differently. He's doing what he has to do because he believes. When Amunah transforms the person's thinking and then it transforms the person's feelings, even though it doesn't make any sense, it's Amunah. And nevertheless, the Seichel and Midas are changed by this. This is the Ichud of Galia and Sasim Dinishmasa, which is a uftu of the Alter Rebbe of Teres Chassidus. Kshem wie es ist bei jederin befragt. Just as you look at every individual yid, Chassidus accomplished the mayonis of the neshama, which is the sasim sheb neshama, the concealed part of the neshama, which is the Eira Emunah, should be able to become one with the chutza of the neshama, the revealed part of the neshama, the seichel and midas. The same thing could be applied to the yidden as a whole. Which the entire Klal Yisrael makes up one form, one entity. The leaders of the generation, who are the head and the brain of Yidden, they are the level of the Mayan of the Wellspring. Given the Seder, so before Chassidus was revealed, the way it worked was as the daily souls and given the leaders of the Yidden, in a certain sense, were removed. They were sequestered in their own space. Certainly, they had an impact on Yidden. And whether the Torah that was learned from them, or by learning from their positive conduct, way of conduct. But nevertheless, they as a person, they themselves were removed from the chutzah. It says, it's just that they impacted the Yidden as a whole, and individual Yidden. But when you look at the approach of Yefutzum, it accomplished as the Gdei Yisrael soll nicht sein abgeschlossen in Zera Dal Damis. That the greats, the leaders, the Rebbes should not be isolated in their own personal space. Nor they themselves shall come out into the chutza. And as they come into the chutza, they could see the struggles, the poverty of their people, which true poverty is poverty of knowledge. People that don't understand or don't know. And then to communicate with this a pauper with a language and words that they can appreciate, they can understand. Nachmer more than that. Since these wellsprings have to reach every element, every aspect, every detail in the outside, is moving at us as Yisrael geben sich ab euch mit den Inyanim Gashmi von Am Yisrael. This means, this includes that the Gedolei Yisrael are involved, are immersed also in the material needs of Am Yisrael. It's very important to look at the other 32, which was brought also in Ayem Yem. Amol is the Rebbe, the Rosh Masifta, and going given Elon to the Talmidim, and given Elon. In the past, the Rebbe, the head of the yeshiva, the Goin, the greatest giants in Torah, they were Elon, they were alone. And the Talmidim were alone. The derech Chassidus was the Rebbe at Miyasa given, the way of Chassidus that was established by the Rebbe, was the Rebbe is the great godly accomplishment, was the Rebbe is Nitelent to Chassidus and Nitelent. If you think about it from a perspective of hiskashrus, the concept of hiskashrus that a yid can have a relationship with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe has a relationship with the Chassid. This is a something new that Chassidus brought to the world. Teras Chassidus made it possible to be able to have a hiskashrus, to be able to have a feeling that you're connected to the Rebbe and the Rebbe is connected to you. Not just that you learn from the Rebbe, and not just that you emulate the Rebbe and you follow the Rebbe's instructions, but the fact that you feel connected to the Rebbe and you know that because of that, or even not because of that, but that the Rebbe is connected to you, that is Mayanesecha Chutza. The Rebbe is the Mayon, and the Yid is the Chutza, but your Futsu Mayanesecha Chutza means the possibility to make a relationship, a hiskashrus, between the Rebbe and the Chassid. So that's another level of Yafutz Manesecha Chutza as it is in Klal Yisrael. The relationship between the Rosh Alpha Yisrael and the Am that's in the Chutza. Sivav, we're going to talk about Welt. But bringing Elokus, godliness into the world. Teira is doch die Neshama von der Welt. Teira is the Neshama, is the soul of the world. Wie Chazal sagen, als die Welt ist beschaffen geworden, bis Teira Shnikras Reishis. Teira was created, the world was created for the Teira. So the Teira is the engine that makes the world go. Is therefore verstandig as Ivaldi des Kislev aduvketan achidish in Torah. So therefore, if you it's understood that if you Kislev created something new, a novelty in Torah, meaning to say the way Torah manifests and comes to us, obviously Torah, hatera azeis leitia, Torah, there's nothing new in Torah, but achidish meaning to say that the way we interact with Torah is something new. So obviously that a similar change, a similar novelty, a similar revolution had to occur in the world as well. What do we see in the world that changed through the Gili of Teres Chassidus? It's known that because the world was created in a way that it conceals the light of Hashem, so a person can really truly from this world only reach the level of Elikim. Elikim is the level of godliness that is concealed, that is enclosed within the world. If a person contemplates and meditates on the fact that there's a world and the Eibusher created the world, you could reach the recognition and the realization that there is a leader to this mansion, meaning to say that the Eibusher created the world. So Elikus, the way it is in this world, we can grasp. But to be able to grasp and reach the level of Havaya that transcends the world, that's beyond us. And even though there is, from time to time, a revelation even of Havaya in the world, through the miracles that occur. A miracle means that that Havaya is breaking through the covering of the teva of nature. Nevertheless, that doesn't change the world. It's a shift. It's breaking the natural order of things. So it doesn't change the world. And Havaya comes in, but it doesn't necessarily change something within the world. Chassidus accomplished that in the world it should become possible that there should be a revelation of divine God, of divine light that transcends the world. Was the Father is Chassidus mevar ich pas bora von seichel enushi mit mishalim v'chulu von inyane ha'olam, which is why Chassidus could explain godly things to the human mind through analogies from worldly things. In other words, you're taking an example of a person, for example, you're looking at a human being, or you're looking at a tree, and you're using this as an example for Elokus, which means that somehow worldliness, nature, is not just concealing an Elokus, it's actually being used as a way to reveal Elokus. We see how the world becomes one with the godly light that's higher than the world. This is the Ufta of Chassidus. The ability to fuse together the godly light that transcends the world and the world that is technically concealing on the godly light, to bring those two things together and to see Elokus in the Havaya in the world that is Yafutzu ben Esech HaChutza. Now we're going to explain this more at length in the next Seifim. But just to understand where we're holding over here, we began with the idea of Yafutzu ben Esech HaChutza, that the Mayonis have to come into the Chutza. We explained this on 4 levels. We explained this on the level of Teira, that Nigla de Teira becomes one with Nister de Teira. We explained this in the person that Sasim de Nishmasa, which is the Eira Emunah, becomes one with Galia de Nishmasa, which is the Seichel and the Midas. We discussed this within Klal Yisrael, that the Mayonis, meaning the Rashi Alpha Yisrael, become one with the Chutza, with the people. And we explained this in the world, that the Mayonis, the Eira Laki that's higher than the world, could become one with the materialism, with the worldliness that generally conceals the Eira Laki. So we're now in Siv Zayin and on, we're going to elaborate a little bit to understand what does it mean to bring together, to fuse together the Eira Laki, the Shem Havaya, and to bring it down into this world. What does that mean? And we're going to learn this from a phrase that the Alter Rebbe writes in the letter about the incredible miracle of Yotes Kislev. The Alter Rebbe says, "Hifli Hashem v'higdil ases ba'aretz." The Eibishter did wonders and greatness in the world. We're going to say, what does it mean, Hifli and Higdil? And this explains what the Alter Rebbe writes in his very well-known letter, that the redemption of Yotes Kislev was in a manner of Hifli Hashem. The Eibishter made wonders, v'higdil, and he made great things, lases ba'aretz, and he brought it down into this world. In the Seder Hanaga, the Eibishter für developers and Franz Veifanim, the way the Eibishter runs the world, there are generally 2 approaches. Aleph Hanaga al pi teva. Number 1, the natural order. In welche ezet sich nityan begole der chayes eliki, where we do not see in a revealed way the godly light, the godly life force of the world. Which this is run primarily from Shem Elikim. Elikim begematria hateva. Elikim is the manifestation of godliness as it comes down into the natural order of things. Base. Then there is a higher level, Hashgacha Pratis Begoli, when we see the hand of Hashem in a revealed way. As in the Anagas Hateva is Nikir der Ervachayis Eliki und the Hashgacha Pratis. That in the natural order of things, we are able to see, we can pinpoint the godly light and the godly life force and the Hashgacha Pratis, the divine hand that is controlling everything. Which this comes from Shem Havaya. So Elikim is concealed in nature. Havaya is higher than nature as it comes down into this world. Now, within this second way, there are 3 different ways how we see this or how we experience this. So we have Teva and we have Teva, Elikim, and then we have Havaya. In Havaya itself, we have 3 sub divisions. Aleph in Anefim von Kivyachol Katnos. Number 1, on a minor level. As the Hashgacha Pratis verderheret in Ahanaga b'darach Teva. You see the Hashgacha Pratis in nature. See a tree, you see a leaf fall off the tree, and you understand that this is from the Eibishter. Beis, in an Eifen von Gadlus, Higdil, something that's already not a minor thing, it's a major thing. Wenn das wird erhört und antlegt in an Auge, was es von Teva, when it is experienced and realized and revealed in something that is beyond nature. Derech beim Chazal, Dover Godel Ma'aseh Merkava. For example, Chazal say that what is something, it's considered something great to understand and to learn, Ma'aseh Merkava, the works of the chariot of Hashem. This is referring to a section in Yecheskel, which speaks about the chariot of Hashem, which is a very, very lofty discussion that's beyond, really truly beyond human understanding. And a person is able to learn that, and obviously much of it is explained in Chassidus and in Kabbalah, but to be able to understand this is called a davar gadol. So the Rebbe is using the word katnus and gadlus. This is a sort of to do a little bit of a spoiler alert. This is going to address us back to our original discussion about the two pshatim and Vayivasa Yaakov Levadoi, and the two approaches, the two explanations for the revelation of Chassidus. One is something small, one is something great. It'll touch back to this. But putting that aside for a moment, there's a davar katan, small, something that's considered minor, which is when the Hashgacha Pratis is seen in nature. And then there's a davar gadol, which is when we have to shift away from the natural order of things, similar to Ma'aseh Merkava. Aber ich higdil weist auf an Auge, was hat an Erech v'shaychus to den Auge von Katnus. Even when you say that he did something great, it's still relative to something small. It's in demselben Zug nor gresser. It's in the same realm, it's just that it's greater. Amol asach gresser. Sometimes it's even much greater. Aber nit bein Erech von an Auge sateva, but it's still not out of the realm of nature. When you say something is bigger, it means that it's bigger than something, or even big. Big is relative compared to something else that's small. So when you say higdil, so you say that something was great, it's still in comparison to something. So it still has some connection with nature, even though it's breaking nature, but it's still connected to nature. The Gimel, then you have the third level of Havaya, the Anhaga in an Eifen von Hifli, versus Muvdul von Anhaga Sateva. It is a wonder. It is something that is incredible, because it is entirely removed from the natural order of things. To explain these three Eifanim, the Rebbe in Siv Ches is going to talk about three types of Nisim. There's Teva and there's Nes. So Elikim is Teva, is nature. Havaya is higher than nature. How will that express itself to us? In the form of a miracle. But there's three levels of miracles that will be consistent with the three levels of Havaya: Katnus, Gadlus, Higdil, and Hifli. These three levels of Shem Havaya are the three levels of Nisim. Aleph Nisim zayin melubish narchei teva. There are miracles that are built into nature. Bizas is nitkantikas is a nes. So much so that sometimes you can't recognize the fact that it's a nes. V'de nes from Purim. Similar to the nes of Purim. Meaning to say, even though this is coming from Havaya, v'bald ezet zich in dem the Hashgacha Pratis, because you could see the hand of Hashem in this. In other words, there's so many details in the story. Let's use the story of Purim, for example. The fact that Esther became the queen, the fact that Mordechai had seen Bigson and Seresh, the fact that Achashverosh didn't kill Esther when she came to him, the fact that, etc., etc. There's so many details that had to fall into place in order for this to work. So you clearly see Hashgacha Pratis. But it also seems like it worked naturally. Is the Sabar in an from Kiviyachal Katnus Canal, and therefore it seems like a minor shift, a minor break in the order of nature, and therefore it's a nes amalubish beteva, and therefore it's called katnus. It's something minor, something small. Beis nisim gluyim. Then another level, when you see a revealed miracle, but despite the fact that it's an open miracle, it's still something that is anchored in nature. And the example that Rabbi gives is the conquering of Yericho through Yeshua. The first was the miracle where the walls sunk into the ground. That is a miracle that is not connected to nature at all. That is totally supernatural. But afterwards is Vayala on v'gomer, Vayacharimu v'gomer leficharev. Then the nation, Yeshua's people, went to war. And they destroyed the people they destroyed the people of Yericho through war. And achizin teva. So even though the fact that they were able to win the war, when the people of Yericho were so fortified and were so powerful, is a miracle, but it went through a natural effort. They went to war. So you see this even more specific in the battle with Midian, where it says, draft for yourselves people for the army, and they went as an army. Nevertheless, not one person went missing. It was a war, which did not have natural results. Usually in a war, even if you win the war, which even that is miraculous, but if you win the war, there's the cost of war. You lose people along the way. In this war, nobody got lost. Nobody went missing. That is not a natural event, but it has an achiza in teva, because there was a war. The Rebbe brings a story with the Alter Rebbe. As a person that was ill, that none of the doctors could find a cure for him, came to the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe advised him to eat a half a shmura matzah and drink water. When it's gesund geworden, and he became healthy. This seems to be incongruous. You're telling him to do something that would actually have an effect on the body, would strengthen its health. But from a medicinal perspective, shmura matzah and water have no powers. Especially for someone who is so sick that the doctors gave up on him. Nor canal. But according to what we're explaining that there's a concept of ness that is higher than nature, but is anchored in nature, we understand. The actual healing, the cure that the Alter Rebbe gave this person was higher than nature, was supernatural. It was done by going through nature, so he had to do something. So he told him, eat a matzah and drink water. So that's the second level. That it's clearly a supernatural event, but it plays itself out in the world of nature. Gimel, the third level, which we called Hifli, Nisim vashaben afilu nit kein achize in teva, miracles that have absolutely no anchor, no connection to nature. As David in Nitzach Nisi in dem Öfen wie Chizkiah had gesagt, similar to what Chizkiah said, Ani yashen al mitasi wa benatzeach zayin. I'm going to lay on my bed, I'm going to sleep in my bed, and I'll be victorious. Here, there's no effort, there's no natural investment, and yet there's a victory. This means that there's no involvement of nature at all. So number one, the ness is melubish in teva. It becomes part of the natural order of things. Number two, that is clearly a shift away from nature, but it's still happening through the natural process. And number three, nature plays no role at all. And this is what the Alter Rebbe means in the letter when he says that the Eibishter was Hifli and Higdil. The Regili at Chassidus when das Kislev hat aufgetan, nicht nur die Haare von Havayis Stam, in an Eifen Kiviyachel von Katnus mit Archei Teva, not only that there should be a ray of light, a ray of Shem Havayah, on a minor level, that it should be concealed in nature, not only that you can only see it through the efforts of teva, not in einem Öfen von Hifli Hashem was the Gamri Hech von teva. The Havaya that has absolutely no need for teva. The level of Havaya, the kind of miracle, the kind of supernatural event that is absolutely removed from nature. That's what the Eibishter utilized and revealed to this world through the Ness, through the story of Yitas Kislev. Liidach, he says the Alter Rebbe Messiah lasis baretz, and then the Alter Rebbe concludes Hifli v'higdil havaya, but lasis baretz to accomplish it, to do it in this earth, on this earth. Because the whole purpose of Chassidus is to take this highest level of havaya, the havaya that is totally removed from nature, and bring it down into Eretz, into this world. So this Siv Zayin and Ches and Tes help us understand a little bit what it means in Siyam Vav, where he says that the uftu of Chassidus in Welt is the gilui of Shem Havaya in Teva, in this world, that it's not just that you're breaking nature, but you're actually transforming nature, that nature should become one with Havaya. Hifli v'higdil Hashem laseis ba'aretz. That is the fourth expression of the uftu, of the accomplishment of Yites Kislev, of my futzu, my nesecha chutza, that the mayonis, the mayon, the Shem Havaya, that is higher than Teva entirely, laseis ba'aretz, should come down into the world. The question becomes, how do we accomplish this? How do we bring together Maya Nisecha and Chutza? They seem to be two opposite things. Maya Nisecha in any of the levels. If it's Sasim Shabbatayra, if it's Sasim Shabbaneshama, it's something that is so far removed. How can we all of a sudden take something that is the Mayon, the source, the core, the essence, and bring it into the world, into what in a certain sense is its opponent, is its polar opposite? So that's what we're going to talk about in Sif Yud and Yud Aleph. And the answer is going to be through the Etzem. That these differences of Sasim and Galia are only in the manifestation of each respective thing. If you go back to the core of whatever it might be, it is beyond the division of Sasim and Galia, and therefore, on that level, you're able to bring the two together. It says, it's known that the power to be able to bring together, to combine the revealed parts of Torah and the concealed parts of Torah, even though Torah itself divides them into two separate elements. As Al Pitera is Nid Galia, and the part of Pnimiyus HaTorah is referred to as the Sasim, as the concealed, and it's meaning to say that Torah recognizes that it's not revealed. And then at the same time, you're telling us that now is your Futsu, my Nesecha Chutza, it's the time to reveal it. Nehmt sich der Fun, was der alte Rebbe hat mamshich gewen, etzem Pnimiyus HaTorah. The power for this is from the fact that the Alter Rebbe revealed and drew down into the world the essence or the core of Pnimiyus HaTorah. And the Rebbe explains, the Yischalkus zwischen Sasim and Galia the Torah is nor mitzad der Ispashtus von Torah. The fact that there's a division between the revealed and the concealed is only as Torah manifests itself to us. Was jeder Inyan is mugdir in sein Zier. So then every aspect of Torah has to be defined by its ramifications. And therefore, this is Sasim, this is Galia. Aber mitzad dem etzem von Torah, etzem pnimis ha-Torah, is the takin chalkos nagdaris. But if you go back to the essence, to the core of Torah, there's no division, there's no definitions. The etzem von Torah is the atzmos hein von Sasim and hein von Galia. The essence of the Torah is the essence of both the revealed parts of Torah and the concealed parts of Torah. Und der Riber can mitzad dem während der Chibur von Sasim and Galia. So when you go back to that level, you can bring together Sasim and Galia. He's going to explain this in halacha in a moment, but just so we understand, when you have like we say, Oysa Shalom B'Mroimov, when you have two kids that are fighting over something that to an adult is totally insignificant, but to them it's very significant, so they fight over it. Then you go to someone who is older, more mature than them, and will introduce something that is bigger than them, and that will distract them, or will make peace between them, or will explain to them how insignificant this is, and will bring peace. It's explained in Chassidus that you have Eish and Mayim, Chesed and Gvura, they don't get along, but then you go to the Eibishter that's higher than Chesed and Gvura, and he makes shalom between the two. So when you say that there's Sasim and Galia, that's how Torah is expressed to us, so to speak. So therefore, there's different parts of Torah, and they manifest themselves in different ways. But in the essence of the Torah, in the core of the Torah, there's no difference between Sasim and Galia, and therefore Sasim and Galia can get along. Sasim and Galia can become one thing. The Rebbe actually brings an example for this in halacha. In Torah is alpidin da von kalish bekalis bis chamuris bechamuris. On the one hand, Torah qualifies certain things as minor, kalas shebekalas. on the most minor level, and certain things like chamuros shebechamuros are very severe. Either you see it through the punishment that's given for it, or however it's defined. Torah clearly defines certain things as minor and certain things as severe. Und zusammen damit ist psak din barer, and at the same time, there's a very clear psak din. Ha'im she'ein Torah me'im Hashem. Someone, God forbid, says the Torah is not from Hashem. Even it could be a pasuk, even one word. If a person claims that Moshe said this on his own and it did not come from Hashem, he is considered a kofer, that he is denying the entire Torah. So too, if someone denies the pirush of Torah, he says, I'll accept Torah shebiksav, but I can't accept, or I don't accept Torah shebal peh, chas v'shalom, v'hu Torah shebal peh, is the same thing. He's called a kofer. So the person can say, if Torah has levels, there's kala and chamuros v'chamuros. So let's say, maybe if somebody denies the word Shema Yisrael, the pasuk Shema Yisrael, that's a very fundamental aspect of Torah. So that's considered a major problem. But if a person denies the pasuk, let's say Achos Leiton Timna, that Leiton has a sister named Timna, which does not seem to be that important. I mean, obviously it's a chelek of Torah, but a person might claim. So you say, okay, fine, it's a problem, but it's not that big of a deal. So we see that despite the fact that there's revealed that there's minor parts and major parts of Torah, when it comes to the belief in Torah, to be kaifer in Torah, every part of Torah, the smallest and least significant and the most significant aspect of Torah is all the same. If you're a kaifer, you're a kaifer in Torah. Because when you're talking about how it expresses itself, how I should observe, there's kala and there's chamura. But when you're talking about the emunah in Torah itself, which is the etzem of Torah, over there we can't differentiate between levels, between kala and chamura. Over there, every word in Torah, every part of Torah is equal. Doesn't matter which word you're talking about, doesn't matter which commentary, explanation you're talking about, every part of Torah is equal. So here we see the fact that on the one hand, there is layers and differences and various different manifestations to Torah, and on the other hand, we see that there is an equality to Torah, that everything is exactly the same. Similarly, when you talk about Sosim and Galia, the way that Torah is, the way it's expressed to us, there's Sosim and there's Galia, and our job is to bring together the Sosim and the Galia. But the reason that it's possible to do that is because on the level of Etzem Pnimiyus HaTorah, there's no difference between Sosim and Galia. And if you're able to reach, which is what the Alter Rebbe did for us, he was Megala to the world, Etzem Pnimiyus HaTorah, this gives us the power to bring together the Sosim Shabbatera and the Galia Shabbatera. And so we're going to apply the same thing to the other examples of Ma'ayin Asach Chutza, which we brought earlier in the Sikha. Al derech zeh zeich ba'iden, kanal sift al dheaz, yotes Kislev et eich ufgetan dem ichot von Sosim v'galish b'neshmasa. The same thing could be applied with regards to the within each yid, that we said before that the uftu of yotes Kislev is to bring together, to unify the Sosim shebeneshama, the Galish shebeneshama. Because Chassidus revealed the etzem pnimiyus HaTorah to the world, this revealed the etzem and neshama, the essence of the neshama, bechinas yechida, und Rabbi hat das aufgetan dem Chibur von Sosim v'Galia shebenishmasa. Even though there is Sosim and Galia, but Sosim and Galia will apply once you have the outer expressions of the neshama, nefesh, ruach, neshama. So because it's already a more external expression of the neshama, therefore there are certain parts that are more concealed and certain parts that are less concealed, certain parts that are built into the person's nature, and certain parts that transcend the person's nature. Seichel versus Amunah. But on the level of Yechida, and the Yechida Sheba Neshama, there's no difference between Amunah and Seichel. And therefore once you reveal the Yechida, you're able to bring together the Eira Amunah, that it should apply, and it should transform even the Keiches Apnimim, the Seichel and Midas. And this is the accomplishment of Yotes Kislev. When El Rebbe was Megala, the Etzem Pnimiyus HaTorah, he was Megala, the Etzem Anashama, the Yechida, which gave the Yid the power to fuse together Sasim Shebenish Masa and Gali Shebenish Masa. Uba Avoida, and to apply this in the person's Avoida, the Amunah and Kabbalas Oil soll durchnehmen the Keiches Apnimim von dem Adam, that the Amunah and Kabbalas Oil, which is the fundamental aspects of the person that are not bound by seichel, that they should permeate the external faculties of the person. With Seichel Amidus, the Gilui and Etzem and Neshama is the Gilui Ha'etzem Eich von Allah. Once you reveal the Gilui, the Etzem and Neshama, this is the Etzem and Neshama is the Etzem of the entire Neshama, also of the Galius of the Neshama. So once you reach that level, you're able to bring together all of the aspects of the Neshama, the Sasim and the Galia, and bring them together to work in tandem. When I say ich bin a Klaus Yisrael, das was jetzt Kislev gegeben dem Keach as Rashi Alpha Yisrael soll stehen bekiruv und nachmer bis achtos mit alle Yidden. In addition to that, what we said earlier, that Kislev created the ability that the leaders of the Doir should be able to stand close, and not only close, but be his achtos in one with all Yidden. He says, there's nimshach geworden der Gilui von beginnes Yechida Klaus von Klaus Yisrael. Just like we said with regards to the person's individual neshama, that there was the revelation of the Yechida, there was also the revelation of the Yechida HaKlalis of Klal Yisrael. Was mit Sadem is der Kisher bechibur von der Kema Achas Shlema von Eden, Bizen and Nefen von Yachid, and this brings together all Yidden as one, and therefore it made it possible for the Galia, for the Rebbe, for the Rashi Alpha Yisrael to be his achdus, to be one with Yidden. There are two very powerful points that are brought in the Ha'aris. Number one, in Ha'ara 54, he brings the point that despite the fact that Chassidus discusses 6 different types of relationships, father and son, etzem ve'ispashtus, the essence and the manifestation, mo'ir and the source of light and the light that disseminates, etc., the iskashrus of Rebbe v'chassid is higher than all of it. Which obviously connects that with this idea that once you're Megala the Yechida HaKlalis, this gives the power for the Hiskashrus of Rebbe and Chassid. In Ha'ara 55, he talks about the fact that because of the Gilui of Yechida HaKlalis, this makes all Yidden to be in a Kema Achas Shlema. This is one of the reasons, says the Rebbe in Ha'ara 55, why one of the fundamentals, one of the foundations of Chassidus is the idea of Avas Yisrael, because the amitis ha'achdus, the true oneness of Klal Yisrael was revealed through Chassidus. So this is not directly said in the Pnim, but this is a very, very fundamental aspect that we have to understand, that the Rebbe here is not just talking about the idea of his kashrus. The Rebbe is also talking about the idea of Avas Yisrael and Achdus Yisrael that was accomplished through the Alter Rebbe, through Yitzchak Kislev, that through the Gilui of Etzem Pnimius HaTorah, there was a Gilui of the Yechida of the Neshama, where there's also the Gilui of the Yechida HaKlolis of Klal Yisrael that unites and unifies all the layers and all the different backgrounds of Klal Yisrael, and therefore it became possible for there to be a iskashrus of the Rebbe and the Chassid, and therefore it became possible to be able to have true Avas v'Achdus Yisrael because of the Gilui of the Yechida HaKlolis of Klal Yisrael. And the same thing, there was 4 levels earlier on. Torah, Yid, Klal Yisrael, and Welt. So now too, once we explain how it's done, through the Gilui of Etzem Pnimis HaTorah, through the Gilui of the Yechida Shebenefesh, through the Gilui of the Yechida HaKlalos of Klal Yisrael, the same thing applies to the Gilui of Havaya in the world. On the level of Eiris Vigiloyim, on the external manifestations or revelations of the light, of the divine light, you can't have a revealed connection between the divine light and the world. Because its definition is light, it cannot fuse itself, it cannot connect, it cannot become revealed in a world which is defined by Olam, Elosh, and Elam, by concealment. Was is amitis hametzius und is nesa hakel. The Eibishter, when you come from the level of atzmos, which is the ultimate truth, and is therefore able to contain everything, can sein die Metzius von Hayesh und doch soll der Yes Gufe sein Yuchad ben Eibishter mitach Yuchad. It's possible for there to be existence of what seems to be an outside existence, and at the same time it should be one with the Eibishter, with the ultimate oneness. Only on the level of Atzmos. So when the Alter Rebbe was Megala, the Etzem Pnimius HaTorah, the Alter Rebbe was Megala, the Yechidus Shebenefesh. The Alter Rebbe was Megala, the Yechida HaKlolis of Klal Yisrael, and the Alter Rebbe was also Megala, Atzmusa Yisbarach, to make it possible to bring the Oyer Leki that's higher than Elamis into Elamis. And in Order 56, the Rebbe explains, based on this, we understand how Yafutzu Ma'anesecha Chutza is a preparation to the coming of Mashiach. Because the whole union of Mashiach is Dira B'Tachteinim, the ultimate completion of Dira B'Tachteinim. That there should be a Dira Le'atzmusa, Yisbarach, that Atzmus itself should be able to come down into this world and dwell with its entire being. So when we do Yafutzu Ma'anesecha Chutza, which means to say that we bring together the Eir Lakish, L'maylam Eilamis, and Teilamis, this makes it possible for the ultimate Dira B'Tachteinim. So this explains why Yafutzu Ma'anesecha Chutza is the Hachana to Kasi Mar, because we're preparing the ultimate Dira B'Tachteinim. Now we're going to go back to the second question that we brought up. How do we reconcile the two explanations? Number one, that Chassidus came to fight, to combat, to counteract the darkness of Galus, and the fact that Chassidus is a taste of the coming of Mashiach, which seemed, as we said, to be paradoxical. Is Chassidus coming because of the inferiority of the generation, or because of the superiority, the high quality of this generation? So the Rabbi says like this: the Ruftu from your Futzu Ma'anesecha Chutza, the Etzem Mayon on the Sacha mit Chutza. The ultimate expression of the fact that Yafutzu Ma'anesecha Chutza, that the Etzem, the source, the Mayon itself, the well itself, should become one with Chutza. The greatest expression of this is when the Wellsprings reach a place where it seemingly doesn't belong, or not ready for it. In other words, if you have a field that's plowed and everything is, and you bring the Wellsprings there, then it makes sense, even though it's like an accomplishment to bring the Wellsprings to this faraway field, but at least it's ready for it. But what happens if you're bringing the Wellsprings to a barren, unprepared place? Then it seems disconnected. So obviously, if you could bring Mayonis even to a place where it seemingly doesn't belong, it doesn't fit, that seems like the ultimate Ma'anesecha Chutza. The fact that the Mayonis could reach so far to the outside that it's not a kli, it's not a receptacle for the Mayonis. As a matter of fact, it's not even prepared for the Mayonis. He says, "Nor zu lieben gilui ha'etzem zu fun di Mayonis." It's only because you reveal the source, the core, the essence of the Wellsprings. Because this is the core of godliness, and the ultimate truth is etzem v'amitas ha'metzias na'al nivrai. Therefore, it means to say that the Eibishter, this target of godliness, is the source and the core of all of creation. Und der Riber nimmt es durch euch dem Chutza, and therefore it could permeate even the Chutza that on its own is not prepared for it. In other words, as much as we said in the end of Sif Yud Aleph, that when you're Megala, Atzmusa Yisbarach, it's able to permeate even the Yesh, that the Yesh should become one with the Elokus. The ultimate and deepest, most expression of this is when the Yesh is so far that it doesn't seem ready or prepared for the Mayan. And yet, the Mayan has the power to reach even that. So in other words, the greatest expression of the power of the Mayan is when it reaches the furthest, most distant, most unprepared, disconnected point, and it reaches there. And now we can understand so beautifully and so incredibly the connection between the two explanations that we said in the beginning of the Sikha for why Chassidus was given to us specifically in the latest, most recent generations. On the one hand, because of the darkness of the generations, and basically and the second explanation was that it's a taste, a foretaste of the revelations that are going to be very, very soon with the coming of Mashiach. Der Gilui von Etzem Pnimis HaTeira, die liegt sich aus in dem, was es kennt, bei leichten Eich dem Cheshech von Deire so achreinen, bis mahapech sein Eich ad dem Cheshech leer. The ultimate, the greatness of the revelation of the Etzem Pnimis HaTeira is expressed in the fact that it could reveal the darkness of these final generations and to transform this darkness into light. In other words, both explanations work hand in hand. We'll explain it more in the next seif, but just the next paragraph. But just before we get to the next paragraph, because we are dealing with the time that's right before Mashiach, and therefore we have the loftiest revelations of Chassidus, therefore it is able to illuminate the darkness. In other words, hypothetically speaking, had we gone back a few generations, the darkness wasn't so intense, and therefore the light would not have the greatness of the light would not have been expressed properly. Because it's so dark, therefore the fact that we find ourselves so close to the Gilui of the La'asid is that Gilui is able to express its greatness by illuminating even the darkest generations. Und der Mitgufe ist moving verfasst die Ime von Terrasse von Mashiach. In Erev Shabbos Lache Chatzos ist verbunden Davke mit dem Zman, wenn es wird gerastet der Cheshach HaGalos. Bis zu Cheshach Kafel und Mechop und Dardik was the Mashiach. And therefore we'll understand why the foretaste of the teachings of Mashiach in this Friday afternoon that we're in is connected specifically with the darkest time of Galus. Here is where is the greatest expression of the inherent, essential power of the teachings of Mashiach. To durchleichen dem gresten cheshach, that it has the ability to illuminate the greatest darkness. That the darkness itself, the night itself, shines like the day. So the question that we asked in the beginning of the Sikha, is Chassidus here because the day is so low, so dark, or is Chassidus here because we're so close to Mashiach? The answer is both, of course. How do you reconcile two opposites? It's not two opposites. They actually go hand in hand. Because we're so close to Mashiach, therefore the revelation is able to permeate even the greatest darkness of Galus. And that's why it is in these generations that there's the revelation of Mashiach, the revelation of Chassidus. Because on the one hand, because it's so dark, this expresses the greatest light, and because we're so close to Mashiach, therefore we can illuminate the greatest light that will express itself by illuminating the greatest darkness. And now that we understand this perspective, that where do you see the greatness of the great? Oh, specifically, when it comes down into the lowest of the low, now we'll understand as well the answer to the question of Ayivasa Yaakov Levadoi. Is it an union of Katnos Lechadoi, or is it an union of greatness V'nizgav Hashem Levadoi? Because ich move in the keshes zwischen die zwei Perushim in Ayivasa Yaakov Levadoi Lechadoi Aleph Lechadoi Beis Al Derech V'nizgav Hashem Levadoi. Davke in dem Birur von die Pachim Ktanim, die Birurim Ayesek Ktanim v'Tachtenim, Tachas Achesh Afaelam v'Hester. Specifically, when you go down into the smallest jugs, which represents the Birurim, the refining, the elevation of the lowest levels, of the darkest, most concealed places. Is Nikir v'Nigish Tam Techen and Nekudos Ha'inyan from V'nizgav Hashem Levadei. This is where you see and recognize the greatness of the Eibishter as he is exalted alone. Amitis Achdus Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the truth of the oneness of Hashem. Shehu Levadayu, which is the Eibishter is Levadayu. Is Levadayu, is beyond anything that we can understand, that we could comprehend. Shemitzad Atzmusi Yisbarach. As the Mitziyus HaYesh is Nitkin Stiritz Achdus Yisbarach. That on this level, Mitzad Atzmusai, on the level of Atzmus, the Yesh, the existence, the physical existence, is not a contradiction to the oneness of Hashem. For the mitzvah Atzmusi Yisbarach is the Atzmus HaMetzias from Yesh HaNivra, the Yesh HaAmiti, on the level of Atzmus of the Eibishter. The essence of the Yesh HaNivra, the essence of the created being, is actually the truest most being, the godly being. So the Nizgav Hashem Levadei represents the essence of Hashem that brings together the Yesh HaNivra, the created being, to show how this is ultimately the truest most being, which is godliness. And this is the Vayivasa Yaakov Levadei. Through Lechadai, through the Birurim of the lowest levels, you are able to realize, because only with Atzmusa Yisbarach can you reach the lowest levels of the Pachim Ktanim. So when Yaakov is Mevareh the Pachim Ktanim, this is truly a revelation of the Nizgav Hashem Levadoi, and Yaakov reaches the level of Vayivoser Yaakov Levadoi. I do have to say that I mentioned a few ha'aris. There's many, many beautiful, beautiful ha'aris that continue to expand and elaborate on this whole message of the greatness and the accomplishment of Kislev, of Teres Chassidus, the ability to fuse together the highest of the high and the lowest of the low on every level. And when we truly understand this and we internalize this, we can appreciate Yutes Kislev, we can appreciate the Futzman Esachachutz, we can appreciate the Uft of Teres Chassidus, and we can celebrate Yutes Kislev. And David says as a halfin that that we should celebrate the Gilui Teres HaMashiach, the Etzem Pnimi Satera, Teira Chadasha Meiti Teitze, with his galus of Mashiach Tzidkenu, B'Meheira V'Yameinu. A good Yontif. The Shana Teva, B'Limud Chassidus, B'Darki Chassidus, Tikasevu V'Seichasemu.